Okay, so this is another exemplar response to another sample paper from the exam board for Component 2. So we're going to start by looking at Section A, television and crime drama using Luther. Now, I have no idea what clip they had in mind for this, so for this I used Luther clip with countdowns for mock GCSE Media Exam new spec. So that was one in my playlist if you want to have a look at that. So it's the first clip I made up with the countdowns. The one with Alice on the phone as she's crying, as she's, or as we know, she's killed her parents, but we don't know that when the clip is playing. Okay, but we don't know that when we first watch the actual scene. After viewing the extract, use your notes to answer question 1, the paper said. And here is the question in this paper. Representations 1A. How does this extract represent a version of reality? Explore specific aspects of media language in your response. And it is worth 10 marks. And here's my answer. The behaviour of Alice as she rings for the police is quite realistic, because she is barely able to speak for her crying, and this would be quite realistic if you had found your parents murdered. However, it could be argued that since we know she fakes emotions, that someone as devoid of emotion as her would be incapable of such a realistic performance. Nonetheless, the shot of the father's corpse isn't too realistic either, because he was shot in the head while sitting, so there would be blood splattered everywhere, not just a pool of blood under his head on the desk and a few runs of blood on the window. Not only that, but the writers have been too rhythmic with the dialogue, such as when Luther and Rose, his boss, are discussing the terms of his return to the force, which is delivered fast and yet has no stutters and very few pauses. In real life, Rose would have to deal with Luther's return to the force in a much more formal way, with meetings, records of meetings and signed paperwork. It wouldn't simply be a case of, do you want to come back? Okay then. It could also be argued that the narrative is unrealistic, since Luther is found by Rose at the location where he was considered to have committed an unprofessional act, for which he had been suspended in the first place. It seems a bit unrealistic that Rose would not find that a bit curious and would either suggest guilt, because we know Luther could have saved Henry but didn't, so did actually commit a crime, and or continuing psychological problems, because he is spending time he is meant to be recuperating at the very place that caused his mental illness. The most obvious detraction of realism in the clip is the use of music. Whilst the acting could be argued as being realistic, the use of music is there to ramp up the drama, and as such takes away from the reality the programme is trying to convey. Overall, the programme would have been more realistic with more silence between conversations, between characters, or at least stutters, pauses and a few ums. And less expositional dialogue between characters that is only there for the sake of telling the audience key plot points rather than showing them. And I got the full 10 marks. B. To what extent are gender stereotypes used in this extract? Explore one character in detail in your response. And this is worth 10 marks as well. My answer. Luther is a gender stereotype because he is someone who makes all business and behaves in a serious manner most of the time. He is also broody and a bit of a loner, both stereotypically masculine traits, such as when he is found looking down the hole alone by Rose at the crime scene. For someone so psychologically damaged, he doesn't seem so disturbed at the crime scene. The lone wolf gender stereotype is mostly used with male detectives in these shows and rarely women detective characters, whom are often paired and need emotional support from others. Furthermore, for someone whom has just won a tribunal which could have ruined his life, he shows very little emotion, and you'd think he would, especially in front of someone he clearly feels at ease with, i.e. Rose. When Luther walks out of the factory with Rose, Luther can be seen swaggering as he walks, and this is a stereotypically manly way to walk. When Luther discusses with Rose that his trial separation with his wife Zoe hasn't worked out, then we have two gender stereotypes in play. The first is that the man who wants the woman back is the innocent one whom should be forgiven. The other stereotype is the unfeeling woman whom doesn't want to get back with the husband and therefore is represented in a negative light, regardless of her views on the deterioration of the relationship. Gender stereotyping has been used when Alice is first seen crying on the phone when reporting the murder of her family. Although we know with hindsight that she is acting, the TV show itself at least plays on the stereotype that women cry hysterically when faced with killings in order to divert our expectations that Alice is the killer. And that got the full 10 marks. Media industries. How do production processes influence crime dramas or sitcoms? Refer to examples you have studied to support your response. And this is worth 10 marks. Luther is broadcast on the BBC, a public service broadcaster with a remit set out by a royal charter to provide audiences with a diverse mix of content that educates, entertains and informs. Luther, as a contemporary TV crime drama, fundamentally fulfills the BBC's aim to entertain its audience. Despite their being publicly funded, the BBC makes a profit with Luther's broadcast on BBC America, a commercial-funded channel that relies on advertising revenue to make programmes. By contrast, The Sweeney was broadcast on ITV, which relies on advertising to fund its programming. This means that the programmes ITV makes and broadcasts have to be as entertaining as possible in order to attract companies that want to advertise and sponsor their programmes during their airing. This means, though, that ITV do not have any requirement to educate nor inform in the same way the BBC is required to. Indeed, ITV has always generally been known as the channel of game shows and soap operas since it first began in 1955. These shows are strictly entertainment and are enjoyed specifically because they do not demand much attention from audiences in the same way as many educational BBC programmes do. The Sweeney was one of the first British cop shows to borrow exciting American cop show ideas such as car chases and violence between cops and villains. In that sense, that particular production process not only influenced The Sweeney but also many other British cop shows ever since. And that got the full 10 marks. Section B. Music. Media language. Use the two set music websites you have studied from those listed below in your answer to question 3. And we did Taylor Swift and Pharrell Williams. Question 3. To what extent do these two music websites use conventions? And this is worth 20 marks. In your response you must 1. Explore the two music websites you have studied. 2. Refer to relevant media contexts such as social or cultural. 3. Make judgments about the question. And here's my answer. Taylor Swift's website has typical conventions expected of a modern music website, such as it being multimedia, i.e. text, albeit not much of it, which is conventional in and of itself, images, sounds and videos. It features as its main screen a promotional image of Swift and her new album. There is also an instrumental version of one of her songs playing on a loop, which is also a typical convention of a music website. There is not a lot of written text on the main screen since this is an advert, and this is conventional of music websites too. It also features just below that a link to merch, i.e. merchandise, which can be bought by fans through the website, which is certainly conventional of a music performer's website, as it allows them the opportunity to make more money. Whilst the use of the slang term merch can be considered unconventional if you aren't young enough to appreciate it, the overall use of typical hyperlink features can certainly be considered conventional. The primary function of the website is to target young fans of Swift, whom spend most of their time on the internet than, say, watching TV or even reading magazines these days. The website maintains the interest of the fans in the artist and makes money from them. This is certainly typical of most, if not every, celebrity website. The website also allows the fans to watch the latest music video to the latest single released by Swift. This is certainly conventional these days, as is the use of YouTube, because ironically the video was originally uploaded to YouTube first, then embedded on her website. What this suggests is that YouTube is still the go-to website when it comes to getting as many people as possible to see your music video. Many of whom may not be initially fans, but if they like the video on YouTube, then they can follow a link on the same page as Swift's official website. The key convention that links this idea is that of synergy. which means that a business person such as Swift and other related businesses such as Swift's record label, Vivo and YouTube, etc., can be accessed not just on multiple websites, but that each of those websites are interconnected with one another. This typical convention business model allows fans or the curious to keep being taken to other websites which relate to the artist and buy multiple products. For example, her downloads, streams, CDs, concert tickets, etc. By contrast, Pharrell Williams' website is quite unconventional. For instance, the homepage is a collage of different colour circles with few words or phrases, which themselves are quite cryptic, i.e. not easily understood, for instance social good and art and design, etc. The website scrolls not just up and down, but also in other directions too, which isn't particularly conventional either. However, the site is more conventional if you click on the top left menu button on the website. Then it allows you to pick where you want to go on the website from a list, which is interesting as it is obviously there for people for whom the rather artsy website may confuse and make them go elsewhere. Nonetheless, the rather unique and unconventional layout and design of the website is intriguing and tempts people to explore its features out of curiosity if nothing else. When you click on something, the screen changes via moving graphics, which is rather odd and not seen on many websites either. However, when you get to the web page, it becomes more conventional because it then has clear thumbnail images and one-line descriptions to specific, easily understood topics such as Pharrell visiting places or behind-the-scenes videos of Williams acting in fashion campaigns, such as fashion designer Karl Lagerfeld's video ad for Chanel. Overall, what unites both websites is the sense of strong persuasion of fans to spend through marketing of the artist and music, such as the promotion of current single and or album, opportunities to listen to and buy music, tour tickets, merchandise, etc. They both also have interactive features and links to social media, which links to the cultural context of the social media age. In other words, social media has overtaken traditional forms of media such as print and broadcasting, and this is why artists, including both Swift and Williams, link their official websites with not only a wide array of interactive multimedia, but also to their official pages on the same social media websites as their fans, such as Facebook, Instagram, etc. And that got the full 20 marks. Media context. 4. Explain how music videos reflect the context in which they are made. Refer to Duran Duran Rio 1982 to support your response. And this is worth 10 marks. The use of split screens and overlays are advanced technical codes for the time period, but in hindsight are quite representative of the video editing technology in the 1980s. Video technology was one of the most important innovations in the 1980s because it allowed greater stylistic editing of music videos and was a lot easier to edit with than film stock, which was what older bands were filming on. Furthermore, the dress codes, including hair, makeup and costume, reflect 1980s fashions. For instance, the band's suits were designed by Anthony Price, who worked with other contemporary music artists such as David Bowie and Roxy Music. Both are equally symbolic of the 1980s as Duran Duran. There are also intertextual references to the Bond films of the 1960s, 70s and 80s, which would often feature glamorous locations, stylised men and objectified women. The representation of women in particular gave the impression that they are sexualised objects, which was certainly a typical convention in 1980s music videos. The iconography used in the video is symbolic of 1980s glamour and excess, champagne, dress codes, the yacht, etc. The bright colour palette used in the video reflects a bubblegum pop or pop art visual aesthetic, which was very popular in the 1980s. Finally, the filming on location and at sea suggesting high production values and the importance of music videos to the promotion of the band's music during the 1980s, the early years of MTV. MTV was the first 24-hour music TV channel, so it offered bands invaluable repeat promotion as popular videos, such as Rio, were repeated day and night throughout the 1980s. And I got the full 10 marks. And that's it, that's the paper.